Good morning. Good
Okay.
morning. We are live. The long
Mm,
awaited start to this episode. The long awaited. We can say long awaited because we've been talking about this episode since December.
yep.
And
Mm,
and
mm.
uh and it's a good one. And maybe all the delays is just because this is as I said, Brandon, this is a juicy and risky topic
Mm,
to have a discussion on.
Love it. Love it.
Um,
Love it.
it's called the unhealthy traits in women, the
Mm,
manly
mm,
response to unhealthy traits in women. Um,
mm.
so we're gonna jump into this. I hope you guys been having a good week thus far. Any of the guys that are from our men's ministry chat, hello, welcome. It's good to be on, and this is the Journeyman podcast, man, from Patmos Chapel. We're just here trying to have a good conversation with a bunch of guys about some topics that relate to the journey that men are on in
Mm-hmm.
life. And this is our third episode, so this is exciting. We decided, we would take a little pause, a break during the Christmas holiday time, but we're back at it, and we're gonna try to keep this going with some good topics. And so
Mm.
this is one of them. If you've been waiting to hear us at 9 o'clock, you thank you for hanging in there. Thank you for
I
hanging in there.
appreciate y'all.
We gonna work this out, y'all. We're gonna work this out, and the women are gonna have a podcast on the men, the unhealthy
Mm.
ways that men can't start meetings on time.
Oh
But
man.
we're gonna get there, and we'll take that. We'll take that. We'll eat that. Okay. Listen, we've been waiting, so let's go ahead and jump right in. And we're gonna start this off. I mean, it could be easy to go ahead and just jump right in and start talking about, oh, this is what I don't like about women. This is what I don't like about women. But listen, we want to have an open conversation, but we also want to have a balanced and mature conversation as well, because I think there's a lot we can jump into here as we talk about this. But first, let's just start with this question: what do you absolutely love about women, and why? What do you absolutely love about? Because to
Mm.
be fair, we're gonna start with really. I mean, there's a lot that can be said about how amazing and how wonderful women are. So let's just go into that. What do you love about women?
For those of you with kids, now would be a good time to shepherd
Yeah,
them into
yeah,
the next room.
yeah.
Uh, put on your headphones, take it off, speaker. Um, I mean, what's not to love about women,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we could take it from, we could talk about the physical traits, but for their tenacity, for their nurture, their ability to call us out on our stuff,
Yes.
right? Um, the ability to, even when we're lagging, to take up the reins
mm-hmm.
and push forward initiatives.
Mm,
Their ability to lead with care and candor at the same time.
yeah. Yeah.
I can go on. I can go
Yeah.
on. I was raised by 7 women.
Mm,
Sorry, no, I got my 3 aunts, my mother, and five women,
yeah.
right, in my life, right, and
It felt like
I got a
7.
chance.
That's all
It
right.
felt like 7. It felt like 7 at times, for real. It felt like 7,
Yeah.
but they all had a different trait that I
Mm,
think is central to womanhood, and they made me to be the man that I am today. So
yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
That
yeah,
was
man.
great. That was great. Awesome. Anybody else?
Yeah, I would say the one thing I love about women, specifically, is like the natural ability they have to, support and care for their loved ones. Like I feel like women have like a certain type of like kindness that makes your heart like a little like mushy when you get around
Mm,
them. Like you feel that
Mm,
ease when they're
yeah.
around due to their natural nurturing qualities, and their whole existence being able to like just be there for you and care for others and nurture. And if you have the spouse being able to care for your children, and seeing that, it just it makes you just embody like just being around the fullness of love, honestly.
Mhm.
Yeah, and being, you know how it is out here in this world, how sometimes we can be, this world is, it's not the best. It's pretty rough out there, and being able to come home and being able to just like, I would say, um like surrender, and be like vulnerable with her, and being able to have that, it can help you a lot mentally, especially
Yeah,
because how rough it is for us.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Listen, those are great. Howard, what you got? Actually, Howard, I don't think your
Okay.
mic is working.
No? Okay.
That's all right. That's all right. Listen, I'm in a full agreement with everything you all have said. I mean, I can tell you there are some parts of myself that would not have been unlocked had it not been for the women in my life. There's some perspectives I would not have considered had it not been for the women in my life. And man, there's just something for the most part, there's this way that world is either approached or seen that offers so much color
Mhm.
to life when it comes to how women see things. And so yeah, I mean, not to mention that none of us would be here had it not been for had it not been for a woman. And so got a lot. But even going into just the spiritual, listen, most of our churches are made up of women. I don't know how much
Mm-hmm.
we acknowledge that, because we might be so focused up on the stage and seeing who's talking behind the mic. But if
Mm-hmm.
truth be told, like the spiritual fortitude and the generational longevity of Christianity, for the most part, especially in the Black church, has
Mm.
been has been glued together, held together by women of spiritual, like spiritual powerhouses, who have
Mm-hmm.
not let up, come what may,
Mm-hmm.
on being a servants and just speaking into the next generation. Like we could spend a whole episode really just talking about
Mm.
just how amazing women are and the impact that they have had in not only our personal lives, but just in faith, just in
Mhm.
Mm.
church general. So
Yeah. I heard an
yeah,
interesting stat. I heard an interesting stat recently that no matter what denomination you're in, across the board, it's on average 70% of the church is built of a women.
Hmm.
yeah,
Across the board,
yeah,
regardless of the denomination.
yeah,
That's staggering.
yeah,
Staggering. So yeah, the impact is there. It kind of
Definitely.
makes me feel like, man, if it's 70% on average across the board, where are the men at in that stat, man? But
yeah,
yeah, their
Yep.
impact cannot be understated.
yeah. Man, it's true. It's true. So when we get into just even the Bible, I think it would be great for us to just talk about, and even as we start talking specifically about the Bible, how about we just start with the word, open with the word of prayer, and then go right into the Bible part of this
Let's do it.
conversation. Father in heaven, Lord, we thank you so much for this opportunity to come together as men and talk about things that just relate to our lives and our experience. And Lord, did you pray? We pray that you'll be with the conversation, be with the listeners, watchers, and that someone will be blessed. Ultimately, that's why we're here, to offer a blessing, some perspectives, and to share our own journey. Thank you so much, God, for what you're doing in our lives and those that are watching. In Christ's name, Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
So,
Amen.
Brand, women are prominently featured in the Bible in various areas, and it's I'm curious, what do you see, how do you see God kind of like talking about women or approaching women, or even what light does he put on women, maybe in general, or even some specific passages or areas of characters, scenes in the Bible that come to mind for you?
Mm. Um, there's the ones that are associated to marriage that come immediately, right? Like,
Mhm.
he who finds a good wife findeth a wife, findeth a good thing, and
Mhm.
obtaineth favor from the Lord. right?
Mm.
You have your Proverbs 31 example of a virtuous woman.
Yeah.
But here's the thing about it: what's overstated or understated for me in chapter 31 for when it comes to women and what it was talking about for the virtuous woman, really sets the tone, I think, for how I see how Bible in terms of how the Bible depicts women.
Yeah.
Um, basically, how it sets the tone, so to speak. So in 31, it gives us a lot of characteristics,
Yeah.
but we also see how those characteristics are having an impact on her family,
Yeah.
right? So it says that the husband is at peace with himself, right? The kids are happy in
Mm.
this atmosphere. When a woman is at her best in her household, right? And it just makes me feel like, okay, so a woman is almost like the emotional engine for a household, right?
Yeah.
She sets the temperature, so to speak, going in and going out. When I think about Jesus and how he came and healed the women of that time,
Mm.
because I mean, look, you can say whatever you want about it, but they were one of the demographics at that time that were underserved
That's right.
and definitely undervalued. So there's one verse that sticks out to me particularly when I think it happened shortly after he healed the woman with the blood issue,
Yeah.
right? And then in the next chapter, it says that when he left a certain city, the women started to follow him,
Yeah.
right? So it just reminds me that at the end of the day, as strong as women are, as amazing as they are, and as an impact they have on a church and everywhere else, uh, at the end of the day, we too have a role in their lives to make sure that we are keeping them healed, we are
Mhm.
keeping them encouraged, and we
Yeah.
are keeping them covered as men in their lives.
Yeah. 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 Love that. So I mean, we got a lot to talk about, even just in terms of our responsibility to support them. But you just kind of listed some things that you saw in terms of the impact women have in their homes, in their community, and I think you're right. Like Proverbs 31 kind of presents woman like, listen, she can be an amazing blessing to you. Like she can turn. He who finds a wife finds a good thing and favor of the Lord. Like your life will be better because of you.
Hmm.
I think there's a stat. You talked about a stat in the church. I think there's a stat that talks about married men overall end up performing better in their work life. They end up moving up higher in terms of positions. They end up making more money. And,
Oh,
and those, I've heard those stats probably what, 5, 10 years ago. Maybe they're true now or not, but
okay,
like
okay.
the impact of having a woman in your life does something to you, because you have a sounding board, or you have someone who's pushing you at home after you probably got beat up out there at work or in the world, or feeling
Mm,
wondering about, like, that description of a woman is like she adds so much to your life. um
mm.
and
So don't go to college, just get married. Don't go to
Hey,
college, just
well,
get married, y'all.
I think those statistics hinges on you still going to college.
Right.
We don't want to give anybody an out, but
Right.
a bonus. It's on top of. Okay, Don, what you got?
For me, I feel like generally when the Bible talks about women, they're saying that the women are like discerning, they're gracious, they're generous,
Yeah,
they're kind, and like women are like given a role where they're defined by the family and the home.
yeah,
Honestly, like women, they have to be like obviously focused on the Lord, and when they have that like submission and love for the Lord themselves, that's a great foundation and basis to start off to like then show to you,
yeah.
and that's where ultimately how um a healthy that's where the health of the relationship will come from, just because of that relationship already has built with
Mm,
Christ. You feel me? And
Yeah.
even in First Timothy, I read it last. I think it was last week. I was explaining to it on social media because I when I was going over new chapters in the Bible. If we turn to it right quick, so I can share it with you guys.
Yeah.
First Timothy,
Let's do it.
2, 9 to 15. And let me know if you guys have came across it. You guys got it.
17. You said First Timothy 2:15.
2, 9 to 15.
Okay, 2:9 to 15.
2,
Okay.
9 to 15.
I got it.
All right, and it says, likewise, I want women to adorn themselves with proper clothing, modestly and discreetly, not with braided hair and gold pearls or costly garments, but rather by means of good works, as is proper for women making a claim to godliness. A woman must quietly receive instruction with entire submissiveness, but I do not allow a woman to teach or exercise authority over a man, but to remain quiet. For it was Adam who was first created, and then Eve. And it was not Adam who was deceived, but the woman being deceived fell into transgression. But women will be preserved through the bearing of children, and if they continue in faith and love and sanctified with self-restraint. So that right there speaks a lot. How the word that stood out to me the most was how um, you know, women should be like quiet, receiving instruction, and all around submissiveness. Like that's just the role that women have in a relationship. And if that's not practiced, then the balance is already like tipped. It's just not going to be the way that God intended it to be.
Mm.
So yeah, that's one thing that stood out to me the most when I read that passage.
And this is a very controversial text.
Mm-hmm.
A whole lot of discussion. That's not the right word. All out fighting has happened as a result of these verses.
Yeah.
And I think it becomes a sensitive passage because Don, you read it, you look at that, and you look at today, and you could say, why I gotta do all of that? What you mean? Why? How comes I can't talk in church?
Yeah.
Or why does Paul have something to say about what I wear and apparel and all of that stuff? And I think we could spend a lot of time diving into the details of it, but I think that this is going to be true for any of us, and that is, it is, when I say any of us, I'm talking about men and women.
Mm-hmm.
It is very hard to look at the Bible and the Bible try to tell you what they think the Bible thinks you should be, what God thinks you should be doing.
Yeah.
But the other part of this is that you have to think about Paul and the time that he is in and what principles are undergirding these types of things. And at the same time, when we read passages like that, we often leave out the other part of the conversation is, now what is the responsibility of men? And we're going to get into that a little bit more as we go into this discussion, because it can be easy to read a passage like this and say, hey, listen, this is the profile of a woman, and not also understand what the profile of a man is that's supposed to support a woman through that spiritual journey as well. So good.
Let me just say something real quick. With regards to, and I love what you just said there, Christian, about this is good observation for any one of us.
Yeah.
Right. So it starts off, you have chapter 11 that in my version, I have let a woman learn with a quiet spirit and submissively. Right. Mm-hmm. So when you're taking in information and knowledge all together, these are the kinds of, this is how you're able to receive something.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, like if you're in a marriage situation or a relationship, and you're talking to one another, you're relaying something of emotional importance, things of that nature. As it states earlier in the Bible, also I believe it's in Galatians, it says there that a man also ought to submit. He ought to be submitted to God, and he ought to submit to his marriage altogether. And the woman submits as well to his husband, to her husband, and ought to respect her husband, right? So unless you're coming into your marriage with that kind of spirit, it'll be impossible for you to, number one, hear your woman or her to hear you effectively.
Yeah.
And number two, be able to have the right kind of communication going back and forth, because communication really is the lifeblood of your marriage. If you're not communicating well, you're not going to be able to function healthy. So I think that these are some takeaways, some great takeaways going into a marriage. Women have a lot of passion sometimes, and rightfully so do we, right? So these are some of those great tips that could help us going forward when we're dealing with the man and woman dynamics going in.
B, you said something. You talked about women have a lot of passion, and here's some of these different things, right? So I think that's a great segue to this next question, because over the years, men have accused women of being too emotional, too deceptive, enticing, and even weak, right? However, on the other hand, in our Black community, most Black women have been accused of being too strong, controlling, independent. And so help me understand, Don, B, what is going on here, and why have women been so negatively labeled?
So I told you earlier that these are great questions, right? But I kind of have to blame you a little bit for how it almost ruined my my anniversary dinner last night, because this is the one that it was the anniversary, my brother. It was the anniversary. No, we went through these questions together, and we had such great conversation. But this is the one where we were like, "Take that Bible out, girl. You better take that Bible out. Let's go ahead and get it in." Right? But so check it out. We're not here on this earth by ourselves. It's not just women and it's not just men. We are both here, right? And like it or not, we are all having an effect on each other. Okay, so there are some things that men do that are intrinsic to men, that male qualities, and there are things that women are doing that are intrinsic to women, female qualities. But sometimes how those things come out oftentimes have a direct correlation to their relationships with the opposite sex, right? So let's talk about the strong, independent, and controlling portion of it, right? Sometimes you have it in a relationship, a woman comes off controlling. It's happened before. Oftentimes, if a woman is coming off controlling, it's because she is feeling, and again, I'm only speaking from a man's perspective. If for the ladies, if you're listening, please go ahead and chime in, put your comments in.
Yep.
Oftentimes in a relationship, what's already inside of you, if you're being impacted when something negative is happening, what's inside is going to come out.
Yeah.
So if you're someone on the inside that has a fear that this relationship will fail or not go the way it's supposed to go, when things go wrong, your first reaction is to try and step in and correct it or put it in a course that you think is good for the relationship, right? And the many ladies, when they in correlation with the question, ladies go in, they might like the man a lot, the guy that they're with a lot. And if that man hurts them in the relationship by, I don't know, I mean, let's take infidelity, let's take cheating, for example. And we're talking in a marriage context. If that happens, but the woman really likes the man, she's going to start to put measures in place to, quote unquote, help him stay in this marriage and stop hurting her in the process. So a woman that really loves a man, finds out that he's cheating, she might step in and say, okay, look, I need you at the house by 8 o'clock. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to make it, I'm not trying to be controlling all that stuff, but you cheated, you ran out on me. But I still want to be in this relationship. I need you home by 8. That'll make me feel that you are here and not out there, trying to get yours. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Other things she might put in place just to, again, try to help protect the boundaries of the marriage. No, most people are trying to tell her to get out, but she's trying to help her marriage stay on the right track.
Mm.
Now, how it ends ultimately, we really don't know. But this is where the controlling factor is, and how we sometimes can play a part in that. I'm not saying that men are at fault. I am saying that the uh, uh, external factors sometimes that are happening can bring out these things that can be perceived as controlling, independent, strong,
Let's
all that other stuff.
be less. I mean, those external factors are huge, man.
Mm.
Like the second part of the question talks specifically about Black women in the Black community,
Yeah.
and we cannot have a conversation about the behaviors and the way that Black women have expressed themselves without also talking about, like you just said, about the context and the situation in which they have had to operate. You're talking about women who have had to take on so much more of a responsibility and burden with children, as I just said, they're not only pretty much the only parent in the home for many cases, a lot of cases, but they're the ones that's also in the church, and they're the ones holding office in a lot of offices in the church. So they've taken on responsibility in that part of the community. They're the ones trying to make sure that not just their kids, but the kids down the street still getting their act together and and getting their stuff together, right? Like,
Yep.
and they're the ones that will have to also make sure they provide and that they work and that they, all of that stuff. And of course there are hosts of reasons why the balance in our Black community in terms of genders are just different. There's external factors to the women, and then there's also external factors to Black community as well that we have to deal with. But man, they've had to take on such a huge load. And so what does it take to bear that load? Well, it takes a lot of women over the years who felt like giving up, saying I'm not, because I can't afford to, because my child has to make it and they have to have a better experience than I did. So I'm gonna have to be strong. I can't afford to have my next generation dealing with the same thing that I'm dealing with. So I'm gonna have to, I'm gonna have to make some stuff happen. So
Independence, yes,
we
sir.
we cannot blame many of the progress that we've seen in the Black community, with women being so much more educated, one of the fastest growing groups of being educated from a higher level of learning, and not also acknowledge what they've had to take in to do that.
Yeah.
Don.
Yeah, I would say mainly, I feel like what's one thing that has caused that is example and like influence from their own mother in the house. Like, sometimes it's mainly due to the daughters watching their mothers be so strong and independent and never really see the side of her mother, that was submissive and surrendering to a man or, the husband. And they grow up thinking that behavior is okay and that, hey, my mom did it, so why not? It can pass for me. And with that, with that, when that behavior is learned and it's observed, and then when they get older, it then manifests when they go out into the world, and then it just creates a cycle. And it's until like one generation decides that it stops here, and they actually look to the word on how they should honestly be themselves and how they should be with their families. So it's like, it's really just like watching their mothers go through it and not really asking questions like why just being curious as to why do you do this, or just why is it that you're only like this way but not ever this way, and I'm seeing this, but I'm hearing this, but I'm seeing this. Just really women just being like questioning, like their own mothers, even till now. Like, why, when I was younger, were you like this? Like, what was the cause? So then they can learn from what happened to them, and then build off from there. It's just sometimes it could just literally be a generational thing that just has to get broken.
And
Because
just really seeing the full spectrum of their moms, or
yeah.
that the Bible even presents this, I think, it very beautifully, because you see the women, B, you mentioned them earlier, the women that were surrounded around Jesus, and they are both strong, resilient, and vulnerable. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing. Just think about the women who, when Jesus is at the cross, and the Bible says that all of the men, his disciples, have fled, and the only people left are his
Mm,
mom, his mother's sister, Mary Magdalene, and several other women. They're the only ones left looking at that gruesome scene. And yet they are crying, they are feeling the emotion, and yet they're still there. That takes strength and yet
Mm.
vulnerability. They're the same ones that show up at the tomb when all the men decide, I'm not going back. I'm not even. They show up early in the morning. Like, that
Yeah.
level of strength to say, I'm hurting, but I'm even going to put myself closer to the hurt, because I need to be there, and I need to do this thing. So, like, this strength and vulnerability, this duality, seeing the full spectrum of women, I think is important.
mhm.
Listen, we've talked about some good stuff, but the topic is about unhealthy traits, right? And so yeah, we identify some been labeled strong, controlling, independent, too emotional, deceptive. I mean, consider Bathsheba. Many people blame Bathsheba for like enticing David. You have to think about Eve. People say, well, man, if if what's up with Eve over there, coming to Adam with something that she already messed up on? Why couldn't she just, did she entice him? All these different things. Like, what do you think about these things where we see women in a certain light, and let's be honest, there are some very clear negative traits that were expressed in some people, like the woman that was married to Ahab, Jezebel, right? A pretty vicious woman. There's been some times where um, men's downfall started with a woman doing something. So, moving from the Bible, just from talking about your personal experience, like, what harmful traits, unhealthy traits, let me say that, what are some clear unhealthy traits that you think men have experienced or seen, that you would say, hey, listen, I'm not trying to bash you, but I think these things can be improved.
Okay. Well, before we get into it, let's hit the chat real quick, man. We got a lot of shares.
Yeah.
That let's see what we got here. The latest one I see here is from Dr. Mai. What's up, Mai? We got, actually, my strength came from my dad. You'd be surprised how many strong, independent daughters are created by fathers. Biggie Smalls said it best. Get her college plan so she don't need no man. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I see you pulling up Life After Death. I see you, Dr. B. I see you. All right. I see Miss Dimitri. She's giving in the good morning. Oral says the conversation about their childhood impacts how they show up in relationships. Yeah, that's key for sure. Getting into the question, as it stands, state it one more time, Christian, so that
Let's just say it very succinctly. What behaviors and attitudes do you legitimately believe are unhealthy that you might have seen? Not identifying any specific person, but like, what have some of the things you've come across where you're just like, man, I don't think that really helped me.
I think the one for me, I'll give you the one that I gave, and I'll give you the one that my wife gave, right?
Okay.
So I gave the inability to let things go.
Mm.
The inability to let things go, girls. Like,
Big one.
ladies. Now, again, I have to provide some context, right? If you brothers, right, if you're in a relationship, and again, I'm going by marriage here, not dating, marriage. If you're in a marriage and you tell your wife, listen, talked about this ad nauseum, let's put it away. Like,
Yeah.
okay, so we're done after today. Good,
Yeah.
great, moving forward. And then you mess up and do the same thing that triggered the talk in the first place. She's gonna bring it up, fellas. That's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because you didn't self-correct on your own. You brought it back into up for conversation, and that's just what it is. Now, that's kind of how that goes down. But in a lot of ways, if you've gone past it, and you could be not even in the act itself, it looks like you're on the edges of the act, but you haven't actually done the thing, right? Like say for instance, you put like aluminum foil in your microwave and you cause some fireworks, and your wife is like, you can't do, what are you doing? And you're like, okay, fine, let's never talk about it again.
Yeah.
So she sees you, she's approaching you in the kitchen, she sees you lifting something into, and then she says, hey, make sure there's no aluminum. And you turn around and it's a paper plate. And she's like, oh. So you could be approaching the edges of an action and not actually doing the action, and it comes up. Those are the moments that I'm like, okay, you have to let it go. I know that the alarms go off. I know it's hard, but I'm here for it too. Let's work together to see how we can get past this.
Yeah.
And proceed into a healthy thing. And my wife said, I'll be very quick. My wife said, the inability of women to say goodbye completely to unhealthy relationships is what she said. So she believes that ladies stay way too long in a relationship with a guy that is clearly not good for her, trying to make it work.
Yeah. Oh, those are some good ones.
But I would say, in my own experience answering that question, the one thing that I've seen, that I've experienced, was the lack of communication. Because sometimes you meet someone and you can do something that doesn't really, it doesn't really like go well with her. And instead of her like speaking up about it and saying, hey, I didn't really like that, that wasn't cool, they would sometimes like not say anything about it, or they would make it seem like it's okay, and then they would just like keep it in and be quiet about it because they try to like avoid an argument or avoid any like discontent. And then like them being quiet is like, it's only hurting the relationship, because if you don't tell me what I'm doing wrong, how can I correct myself so we can be better?
Yeah.
And then sometimes it gets held into the point where it's just like you can just do one small little thing and then they just blow off.
Yeah.
And it's just like it gets ugly from there, because it's like, how am I supposed to treat you the way you want to be treated if I'm not being told, hey, you shouldn't be doing that? And like, I don't see it as an issue, but you do. So it's like, if I need to be the man you need me to be, allow me to know what makes you happy and what makes you unhappy, so it can be healthy. So them not being upfront about certain things, and sometimes I would see some confused being submissive as not approaching the problem. No, that's just like not even how that should be looked. Like, understand that we are still human. If there's something bothers you, I would expect it to be voiced. Yeah, that's just a healthy thing to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the lack of communication was like a issue I've seen in my experience.
Yeah. Man, that's good. Oh, communication, and you just said it, like timely communication. Like this. Yeah. So I saw Patmos Chapel Media says accountability for their part and redirecting. Redirecting.
Spicy.
I don't know if this is I don't know if this is close to redirecting or what was meant by redirecting, but you might have touched on this a little bit, Don. But man, I'm in a conversation about addressing an issue. For me, I'm focused on the issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I find out later that the issue is made up of a lot more issues. And so it's like everything is connected, right? So everything
Spaghetti. Everything is spaghetti.
Spaghetti. Yes, it's spaghetti.
Everything is
so
spaghetti.
I thought I didn't know it was spaghetti. I thought it was penne pasta. You know, I thought it was like I can see the beginning and the end of this noodle. And, and I realized that no, this is connected to like 100 other things that I have not even considered in this. And so I don't know if I'm mentioning something that is an unhealthy trait as much as it is something that like we enter into conversations oftentimes, especially conversations about things that need to be changed from maybe two different angles, like completely two different angles. So, but accountability, I'd love for whoever put accountability to maybe even say a little bit more in the chat about that. Accountability and whether that means accountability for their actions. Like, are you saying that maybe women have some women have a hard time actually owning up to something or whatever it is? You could say more about that. Hard time actually owning up.
Well, I can't speak for the person that chimed in, and we're hoping that he or she will come back in. But what I can say is this. Oral says men are simple, but women are beautifully complicated. Yeah, I hear you, Oral. I hear you. That's been the rhetoric our whole lives, right? What I can say is this. In a lot of situations, see, men want to lead, want to be the leader in the relationship in most cases. And what I've come to realize sometimes that while we want to be the leader and we want women to recognize us as the leader, there are times where we're not willing to lead in situations past us saying we're the leader. What do I mean by that? Here's what I mean. If you're going to be the leader, it means that sometimes you have to be the first person to do stuff. Yeah. Sometimes you have to be first. Yeah. Because that's what being a leader means. You are the first person to step out and actually, do the thing. And then once you've done it, they follow. Right? Or they have a model or an example, and then they either come and follow, or they might say, well, that was good, but there are some things that I would change.
Yeah.
Open yourself up to that criticism. Hear what it is that they're telling you, because it's not there to hurt you. It's there to help you be a better leader.
Yeah.
Right. And then you keep stepping according to the advisements you're getting, seeing things that you're not seeing. And then she's going to actually help you become a better leader. Right. I think what in a lot of cases, what I see is men trying to get ladies to be more accountable for their role in our lack of leadership. Yeah. And what I'm saying is that the lady's role in the relationship, she cannot help you be a leader and be a woman at the same time. Yeah. She needs you to be a leader so that she can be a woman. Now, once you're the leader, once you establish yourself as a leader in word and in action, that allows her to be the woman you want her to be in your relationship, from my humble opinion.
Yeah. And I'm not so going into the chat right now, Pat Travel Media said something that resonated with me personally. They said that I am saying when a man attempts to address an issue, they will not address that they wouldn't address their part in the issue. They would only redirect the focus solely on the man. And
okay.
that's so big, because sometimes you would be in a relationship and the woman would do something that would hurt you, and if you're not emotionally intelligent enough to understand that you were hurt by the person, sometimes your actions can manifest, and you can even be doing things that's hurting her without even realizing that the only reason why you're treating her that way was because of the hurt that she caused. But you weren't like, emotionally intelligent to understand that the only reason why this is happening is because of the hurt that she caused you. And then through the actions that you're doing towards her, and then it doesn't look pretty because you didn't address it. You didn't address it. You didn't fully speak to her about it, speak to the source. And because of that, then your actions are then produced in a negatively matter. And then now the whole blame goes upon you, when the whole entire time it's because she didn't even say, hey, I was wrong, and I didn't even realize what I did cause that to hurt you, which made you retaliate in this way.
Yeah.
So them not taking accountability, saying, okay, I was wrong, that was my fault, I'm sorry, that's what can lead to that reality.
Yeah.
So that's why I really resonate with that.
Yep. Yeah. That's a good one. Hey, listen, I know another big issue. We talked about labels that maybe women have been given, but I think that oftentimes women give labels to men, and then also at the same time, on the other hand, want something else. So, for example, women may say, hey, listen, I want a strong man. I want a man that I can depend on, take care of, all of that. That's great. But then they may say, hey, listen, I want my man to be vulnerable, emotionally intelligent, emotionally connected, able to, express his feelings and all of those different things. And then when that emotionally intelligent man expresses his feelings, immediately it's like, I don't want that emotional man expressing his feelings.
Go back to the other thing. Go back to the first thing.
And then start going out. Well, then you why are you being so soft or weak or those types of things? And so there can be some contradictions, like what you say versus what you actually want. And this is, I think, in many different phases of relationships or whatever. Like we gotta. What do you want? What do you want? And do you know what you're asking for when you say, hey, I want a man who is in touch with himself and his emotions? Well, and I want a man who communicates. Well, communication is sensitive, because that means you're going to get someone to express themselves, which I think as men, we want our women to communicate. Well, what are they going to communicate, and are you ready for that? So I think that can be one of those things. Like, do you really want what you say you want?
Yeah.
Big one. You know what? That was so huge what you just said, Chris. Both of you guys are throwing some real haymakers here, man. The lack of be able to communicate what they want for themselves. And I think it speaks to what is central to ladies, right? From my experience, ladies, at least the ones that I've encountered, they feel first. They feel first. So if something feels good or right in their spirit, then that's something that they want to go for. But over time, just because something feels good doesn't mean it's good for you. Right? So the more knowledge you get as you go through life, the more you pick up on what is good for you and what isn't good for you. My thing is that if we would just, if we could spend more time with God, asking him to help us understand ourselves, and then trust him when we tell God, I want a mate. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to get married. I want a dude. If you're a lady, I'm looking for a lady. If you're a man, and I want you to handle that thing, Lord.
Yeah.
You have to trust God when he presents you with somebody and he gives you all the indications that he's the one or she's the one, trust him past what you think is not good for you.
Yeah.
Keep taking those steps, keep praying, and what's revealed to him, what will be revealed to you is that the things that you thought were good for you are actually they weren't that good for you from the get-go.
Yeah.
No, you really do need someone that's vulnerable.
Yeah.
You're not equipped to be with someone that's strong because you wear your emotions on your sleeves. Maybe you're easily offended. And these are character traits sometimes that we're not willing to admit to ourselves, but God knows who we are.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my take on it.
And that's so big because being able to like submit to God to give you what you need is like something that is like it goes totally against the human mind because they feel like they can control everything. It's really strong that you I mean it's really strong and it shows that you have great faith when you ask God for that and say, God, give me what you know that will help me and that is according to your will. Even in your eyes currently in that moment, you're like, the quality and traits of this person is, not really what I like or what I see is best. But that whole time, God could put that person in your life for what you literally need to be the best version of yourself with a person.
Yeah.
So you have to be really, really surrendering to the Lord for that, and it's a hard process. It really is.
I think that I want to pose this. It's called, for me, I try to live by and grow in, is the ask and prepare principle. And that is that if you're going to ask for something, you also have to acknowledge that you may not have the capacity to receive it or maintain it or enjoy it. And so you have to ask in faith, but you then also have to prepare yourself to be able to. So you take most stories in the Bible, Abraham, God calls him out and he actually goes to where the future promised land is. He actually takes him to that place. And then he says, I'm going to do this for you. Now we have to go through a whole entire experience of formation for you to even be in a place where you can help make that happen. And so, or be ready for that. Same thing with the people of Israel. I'm going to promise you something because you need it, but then you're going to have to go through a formation process so that you can even be able to exist in the land that I'm promising you. So if you're going to ask for something, the next task for each of you, whether it's man or woman in any relationship, I want this type of guy, I want this type of woman.
Yeah.
Now it's time for you to prepare because you're not ready. Odds are you're not ready.
Ask and prepare.
We gotta get into these last couple questions. What responsibility do we as men have to help support women in living in women and being everything that God intends for them to be? So we can identify their unhealthy traits, behaviors, attitudes, and then at the same time, what's our responsibility in helping women? Because I think that we do bear some responsibility, right?
Yeah.
We can't point a finger. You said it, B. If you're gonna lead, then you have a responsibility. So let's say more about that. What responsibility do we have to help women live godly?
Well, personally, I've like Ephesians 5. That's the go-to right there. Ephesians 5:22 to 29. Like that right there is one way how we can take responsibility as men. It says, like, let me read it right quick for us. It's Ephesians 5:22 to 29. Let me know when you guys have got to it.
Got it.
Okay, so it says, wives, be subject to your own husbands as to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is also the head of the church, he himself being the savior of the body. But as the church is subject to Christ, so also the wives ought to be to their husbands in everything. Husbands, love your wives just as Christ has loved the church and gave himself up for her, so that he may sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word, that he might present to himself the church in all her glory, having no spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that she would be holy and blameless. So husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his own wife loves himself. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, just as Christ also does the church. So this right here is basically telling us our whole responsibility as men, boyfriends, husbands, that we as men need to like sanctify the woman, because understanding that if we have a good reputation, a good name around people around us, that would only make her look even, more
Mhm.
uplifting, because we are a great example of even just being a good person. Because
Mhm.
uh, sometimes when you meet somebody, like say I meet a couple of friends and they know me as a great guy, a great dude, they're gonna be like, if you're a great dude, it would obviously reflect on her as well. So that's our job to, if we have a good image, that will help her get a good image as well, because it will be us then her. So if we're good, she's also good as well.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. I think what you just touched on, Don, is what I call the Boaz effect.
Hey.
That's the Boaz effect. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Copyrighted. That's copyrighted. Just let go.
most definitely.
Just,
Boaz, that's
yeah,
the
whoa.
shirt.
So Boaz, when Naomi and Ruth get back to their old town, Naomi's old town, Ruth, soon to become her town. Everyone in town knows who Boaz is,
Mm.
right? And Naomi knows who Boaz is,
Hmm.
and and Ruth goes, and she understands by way of Naomi who he is, and then Boaz knows his community so well that Ruth comes in and he understands who she is even before they meet.
Mm.
He knows his community, and his community knows him that well. So he's doing well by his workers,
Mm.
right?
Yep.
He's doing well by his family members, doing so much so that when he's walking through his field, I think this is in chapter 2, he's greeting his workers, and his workers are greeting him like, hey, good morning, how's it going? They're like, yes, peace be to you, Boaz. So he gives us an impression that he has a good relationship even with the people that are working under him.
Yeah.
And altogether, any lady that comes into his community, she's going to get showered with great reviews about Boaz, because he's just done right by everyone
Yeah.
within his overall sphere.
Yeah.
So it's hard to beat that. And the people that when they come in and they feel, like you said, Don, that this is a good man, and they start feeling comfortable.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? So
Man, I'm with you. I think that the one of the best versions of women is the version of woman who feels safe.
Oh yeah.
mhm,
Um,
mhm,
Woman feels safe
Oh
in
yeah.
a relationship. She is free. She is, like you said, comfortable,
Mhm.
and the best things come out of her. I love this text that you brought out, because I mean, really jump into, he says in verse 28 and 29, so husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies.
Yep.
mhm,
Own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself, for no one ever hated his own flesh,
Makes no
mhm,
sense.
but nourishes and cherishes her. When a woman feels safe, the only way she's gonna feel safe is if she knows that she can trust you,
Mm.
that you are going to cherish her above all else. Some of us still holding on to friendships of past girlfriends and
mm,
past, could have been relationships, and that doesn't make her feel safe. How's she feeling
mm,
safe,
mm.
right? But when you've closed every avenue of your heart to every other woman but this woman,
Come on,
she feels safe, and she
come on.
feels free to unlock parts of herself that she would not otherwise do in an unsafe environment. And
Mhm,
so I remember there was a quote by Ellen White. She said that the marriage has to be so, I'm paraphrasing, but the idea was that the marriage trust had to be so like locked that no one else could be in. Like, you would hold her confidence so strictly that you would never embarrass her in public with any information that she has shared. And if that trust is built like that, that she would be able to share the depths of her soul and know that it is hidden within your heart.
And you know what's a great analogy as well? Like, for instance, we have to treat our women very, very delicately, because we got to understand that, you know, they are more emotional. And it's like an example, like, let's say you have a china and you have plates in, like, you have fine china plates. You would treat that fine china plate with a certain level of respect and delicacy, because you know how valuable it is. You know how the value, the high value that has within it. So we got to do the same thing with our wives, because if you have a paper plate, it's just a paper plate. It doesn't matter. So you just, you know, it's whatever. But because, you know, obviously you have a fine china plate, you want to like care for it, be delicate with it, because it's like you understand that this can break very easily if you're not careful. So you got to understand that with women, we have to be the same. We have to value them in a way that's like, yo, I have to really, really, really like make sure I'm on this. And like, you have to be really, really punctual about how you speak to her, how you treat her, because you have to treat them like they're of high value, because they are. It's your woman that's a part of you. So.
And in social media, I'm hearing the chatters that almost amount to just a lot more men almost expressing hate towards women. And here in the Bible, no one ever hated his own flesh. That is a nod back to Adam and Eve, because Eve came from his own flesh.
Yep.
So no one ever hated his own flesh. The idea of comparing man and husband and wife to Christ and the church is that when Christ had every opportunity, the God above, to hate people who would disobey him, treat him every other type of way, he decided not to. That I'm going to cherish when I could completely express hate. And so he's basically saying you got to sacrifice some of the things that you think are owed you, and you have to not hate your own flesh. All right, y'all, we gotta wrap up. So this is just one for us, this last one, and we'll just give me a quick thought on it. What is the one thing, if men were healed in, would also contribute to the healing journey women are on?
Vulnerability.
Okay.
I remember Patmos Chapel Media said something exactly on that. They said vulnerability is usually a moment for an open ear, but also the recognition of bravery it takes to be vulnerable. That is so big, because you got to understand, when you're being vulnerable, you're just giving yourself to a stranger. Well, not a stranger, but this is not somebody you live with every day. This is somebody you met. This is new. So when you're being vulnerable like that, it shows a side of bravery that you have. And if we as men learn how to be more vulnerable and we're healed and loved in that aspect, that can honestly allow the women to also be able to trust us and see us as someone that they can come to, and they see that, okay, this is my man, and this is the man that I see who is the strongest person, in the physical world. So if he can come to me and be vulnerable, that gives me the confidence and trust that I can, be vulnerable with him and also be comfortable enough to just be free, just like how you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
And it's important to lead women, but it's also important to show them how important they are.
That's right.
You understand? So that's what I would say.
Love it.
Agree. Yeah. I would go with identity. I would go with identity as number one. If we understand and believe who we are in Christ, that changes how we ultimately deal with everybody else. Right? We start looking at ladies as just women and start looking at them as daughters of God. And our approach toward them will completely change.
Yep.
The last thing really is pride, but not just a lack of, but I'm going to teeter on the other side of it and include more of. So lack of pride in terms of arrogance, in terms of thinking of yourself first above
Yeah.
all,
Mhm.
and and having more pride as in taking pride in what you do in life and in certain situations and relationships, enter in a relationship and make it your business to whether this thing, however this thing ends, I'm going to leave it with the other person better than they were when I first got into it.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Yep.
That's it.
That's it. Yeah, man, two great points. Two great points. Vulnerability, and then having a sense of ownership and pride, and about yourself, and not having that negative sense of pride. Let's go ahead and leave it there. Uh, B, you mentioned the positive side of pride, and so your wife brought up a good suggestion for one of our next topics, and I think we're gonna have to deal with this, if not the next episode, maybe the one after. But confidence in, like,
Mm,
what does confidence have to do with men, and do we have
confidence.
it, or are we struggling with it? And what does a confident man do for a woman?
Mm.
Mm.
That's a
What
good
does
What
one.
does healthy
confident
confidence,
Yeah.
come on?
healthy confidence look like? Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yes,
yeah, yeah,
healthy
yeah, yeah, yeah,
confidence,
yeah,
like
yeah.
that part of the attraction equation, all of that. So let's
Here
get ready
for it.
for that. Let's get ready for that. But great discussion, awesome conversation. Love the chats and the comments there. And um as we ended this with that question about what men can do this healing, remember, this is the Journeyman podcast. And so
Mhm.
at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day, it is what can we grow in our journey that will
Mm.
contribute to a better outcome in our lives and the lives of those that we love, and the impact that we can have in society. And so love the conversation. Every action creates a reaction. And if we can get our stuff together, maybe there's some better things that will pour out from it. And so good to have you guys, Don, Brandon.
Most
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
def.
great.
Mm.
We'll see you guys next time. Be blessed, and have a good week.
Signing off. Mm, mm,
Yep.
mm, mm, mm.
All right, y'all.